Hey, this is Wolfgang Van Halen from Mammoth WVH, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett, and you're listening to episode 211 of your favorite podcast, Walking the Floor. I am still a little jet lagged. This is, what day is it? It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, and I just got back from Australia over the weekend, so I'm still feeling a little tweaky, but kind of getting back into my week here. By the time you hear this ramble is going to be kind of old, so hopefully nothing too crazy happens between now and next Monday. But at any rate, just got back from Australia. We're down in Melbourne, played a gig in Geelong. It was epic, super fun. You may have heard we're going back down there in November, December. And this was a little precursor to that, and it was great. Managed to get some fun surfing while we were there, and the whole thing was just top notch. And then this weekend we're off to Mexico and then South America for more gigs, and it's just getting busy. Life is getting busy. The band is getting busy, and we're going to be all over the place all summer long and into the fall and probably even beyond that. So see you out there somewhere. Let's talk about our good friends at goodoldzounds.com. Have you noticed that everything is costing more these days? Don't let increased costs prevent you from owning the gear you want. You can buy your gear from zounds.com using one of their easy monthly payment plans, and they, you make it affordable, and you get the gear you want today, and you pay it over a period of months. So get on over to zounds.com, and we are going to get to the interview. Okay, Wolfgang Van Halen has sure done a lot for being a young dude. Let's just run through it. He joined Van Halen as a teenager, playing bass, and hit the road with them. I think had to drop out of school or something to go do it, or skip a year. Then he recorded his Mammoth WVH self-titled album that came out last year, and played every instrument on it himself. Sang it, played it, drummed it, did the whole darn thing. And then once he got that out there, he went out on a stadium tour opening up for Guns N' Roses, and he's getting ready to hit the road again with Dirty Honey, or they might be out on the road now. I'm not sure. I didn't look at the dates, but he's got a lot of touring out in front of him and a lot of touring behind him. And, even though he's the obviously the son of an absolute legend, an icon, one of the greatest of all time, maybe the greatest of all time, this guy seems to take it all in stride. He's really cool and really laid back, and we had a great talk. This is Wolfgang Van Halen on Walking the Floor. And it's funny because, like I said, there's all these young bands that are coming up that are playing rock and roll music, and one kind or another. But what's your perspective actually being out there playing in front of fans that love rock and roll music with this subtext all the time of rock and roll is dead?
Yeah, I think saying rock is dead is a very lazy thing to say, because that just means like I'm not good at finding good music, sort of thing. Because there's plenty of amazing rock bands out right now. I just think it's because that pop music and there's other genres that are more in the limelight than rock used to be, but that doesn't make rock any less dead. Right. It's just kind of a lame thing to say.
Well, what is the disconnect there? Because there's certainly plenty of rock music fans, and there's certainly tons of nostalgia for older bands. The Stones can go out till the end of time and pack stadiums or whatever.
Exactly.
But there's all these young bands. But what is happening there in the middle, in your opinion, with the gatekeepers of culture, I guess?
Yeah, I think just people on social media love to just declare things done and over with. Although, well, actually, Rock is Dead started coming from Gene Simmons, so I really don't know.
Gene Simmons killed rock and roll. That's the scoop from this interview. I love it.
Well, yeah, because he's always the one who's like saying rock is dead, and it's like that's no, but whatever.
Yeah. Who knows? It's an interesting question though, and I wonder, You know,
Yeah,
if one or two or three or 10 of these young bands are going to have that kind of cultural breakthrough. Like I know like lots of bands like Greta Van Fleet or you or whoever is popular and can go out and sell tickets and everything. But will any of those bands have that cultural breakthrough kind of impact that Van Halen had, that Zeppelin had, that Nirvana had? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a matter of if we can. I think that's what the people who say rock is dead mean, is that it's just not in the limelight, and they would like to see it there, or just see that it used to be and that it's not as much, even though it's still very much high quality music. You know, I really don't, you know, this just happens to be the music that I write and that I enjoy to write. You know, it's not because I'm like, I don't know,
carrying a torch.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is just what I do. And if you want to listen to it, it's cool. It doesn't matter that it's rock. It's just good music, and good music to me. You know, that's it. It's not about like, oh, I need to write this because it's popular, or I shouldn't write rock because it's not, you know, it's just what happens.
And like, when I know you've been doing this band for a little while, but if the Guns N' Roses tour was like your first tour experience, had you done many shows before that? Because that's like, that's insane to go out and have that be your first touring experience, playing like stadiums, opening for one of the biggest rock bands in the world.
We did two club shows before, on our way to Hershey, Pennsylvania, where we then played in a stadium.
Really?
It was our third show. Granted, we rehearsed for a month, you know, and I've been sitting with this material since 2018. So, but yeah, no, it was a bit crazy that we actually pulled that tour off at all. And the fact that everybody in Guns felt we were good enough to open for them, which was kind of, you know, they really trusted us.
Well, how did you handle that? And how did you evolve as a frontman over the course of that tour? Because there's like things that you can play your songs in your bedroom or the rehearsal room, or think about it, and obviously you have experience on tour, you know, playing big venues, but not being the frontman, and that's a different animal. You know what I mean? And that can play tricks with your head too. That's
big time. It's just something that you have to. You can't learn how to do it. You just have to get seat time and figure it out in the moment. And, you know, I would make some mistakes and stuff. But I think by the end, I kind of had a good grip of it. It's a bit different with headliner shows, you know, the headline shows in between the Guns shows. It's like everybody's so happy to be there because they're there specifically for you, that it's just an easy, fun time. But with the Guns stuff, you're kind of auditioning for everyone's attention.
You're trying to win them over with songs that they, in all likelihood, haven't heard, you know?
Yeah. And that's any opener gig. Like I'm not at all, but yeah, it's very much a thing where you're just getting shot out of a cannon after two shows. But I think we stuck the landing. It went really well.
What kind of, I haven't seen you guys live yet. So what kind of frontman are you? Are you like, what the fuck, motherfuckers? Are you ready to party tonight?
I'm very much myself to a certain degree. Like it's not much of a, you know, what the fuck is up, everybody? You know, I think everybody would expect, you know, from a cynical distance, if they know nothing about it, they'd probably assume me to be like David Lee Roth-esque and be like, wow, in between every vocal. And it's like,
maybe that's coming.
Yeah, maybe that'll be a phase I reach at some point. But right now, I'm just myself, and I talk to the audience. I tell stories in between songs about what you're about to hear, and you know, I don't know, maybe it's boring, but I'm just being unabashedly myself, and I think being honest is a nice thing to be doing.
Yeah. Well, how did that tour come about? Like, how did you get? That's like a opening slot that I imagine every band on earth was trying to get.
I had heard that Duff, Slash, and Axl all agreed that they wanted me to open. So they came to us. You know, I've met Slash a handful of times. I've met Duff once or twice, but Axl was the question mark. Like I'd never, and he told me that later after meeting him on the tour, he told me that he had watched the music video for Don't Back Down and was like, I really liked that song. And that was the reason why he was like, yeah. And it was pretty crazy for them to just, you know, stake their opening slot on the fact that that at least Axl, that he liked the video. So it was very, they took a big chance on us, and it's a pretty crazy thing to do for a stadium tour.
That's pretty cool to hear that those guys are involved in that. You know, you would think that would just be determined by
Yeah, management or something.
or whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, pretty crazy.
You know, in most of the footage I've seen of you playing, I feel like you're playing an ES335 or some like a Gibson hollow body or whatever. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't have a Floyd Rose on it. So I'm wondering if I'm just not seeing the footage of you playing like some crazy, you know, Frankenstrat type guitars, or if you get into that type of thing too.
I do play a Wolfgang every now and then. People love to throw that in my face and say like I'm dishonoring or whatever, you know, whatever. But I think that the main thing with Mammoth is that I wanted to establish my own identity and my own sound.
Yeah.
And when we started recording it, the first guitar that really was like, oh wow, this is starting to become its own thing was when I pulled out my dad's 59 ES335, and it was so old that when I tried to tune it, I believe the tuning pegs are like ivory or something, like
right.
long ago, like it crumbled in my finger, like just it like turned into like cinnamon in my finger. It
had it been sitting in a case somewhere for 30 years or whatever, 40 years.
Yeah, pretty much. But when we recorded it sounded amazing.
Right.
So that's when I sort of got that bug for that hollow body sound. So
did that guitar in particular have its original PAFs in it?
Yes, it did.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible. But I mean, so when is this going to air? When are people going to be hearing this?
It's going to probably be in about a month.
Okay, good. Because people will see that, there's so many people who are like, you know, why don't you develop your own guitar? What are you doing? You know, this is like disrespectful. And it's like, I've been doing that this whole time. I just couldn't.
Wait, you mean out. People on the internet were making an assumption about something they knew nothing about?
Conclusions? What?
I'm shocked.
But yeah, so when people see it, I've been developing my own hollow body at EVH, and I think people are gonna really dig it. Hopefully, you know, this isn't. That's
through EVH.
Yeah.
And
you know,
is EVH still part of Fender?
Yes.
Wow, cool.
And so yeah, we're developing a guitar that I'm very excited about. I'm excited for people to see, because I think finally people will be like, oh, okay, that's good. Like they won't have much to say other than saying they don't like the design, or they'll go into something else.
Is it, if you don't mind me asking, is it 335-esque?
Ish, I guess. You know, it's but it's certainly modified. Like it's got, I mean, I guess I'll just, because it'll be out, you know, there'll be pictures of me playing it by the time I'm doing this, but it just feels so weird to talk about because I haven't with anyone. I'm calling it the SA 126. Dad's birthday is January 26th. He named a song 316 after my birthday. SA, semi-acoustic. So that's been the kind of code name, and the more I've sat with it, the more I really like it. But yeah, it's got this, it has one F hole, but we've kind of modified it so it's an E hole for Dad, for E. And but yeah, I'm really stoked about it, and I think people are gonna dig it when they see it. They're gonna be like,
"Oh, that's cool."
Playing something.
So if you're saying people are going to be seeing you playing, does that mean that it's going to be released fairly soon?
No, we're kind of in the, you know, whenever Dad would test a product, it's a process we call crash testing, where basically, you know, we just run it into the ground and test it in every aspect that we can. And so that's kind of what this next tour, or at least this next year of touring, will be, is kind of getting the idea of it out there and seeing people's response to it, while simultaneously beating the crap out of it on the road and seeing if it's
right. Go drive it into a wall a few times.
Exactly.
See what happens. Yeah.
I'll never forget when my dad was developing the 5153 amp, and he would, every time he got a new model of it, he would go into the studio, crank every knob, plug a guitar in, and just sit it on the ground and leave it feeding back over the weekend to make sure it wouldn't blow up.
Really?
And like you could be down at the house because the studio's on the property, and you could just hear a faint. And as you
how'd your neighbors feel about that?
They couldn't really hear it.
Like, fucking Eddie Van Halen's fucking testing and some more gear. God damn it. Let's go to Palm Springs.
But yeah, it's funny as you open the door, you could slowly hear it get louder and louder until you're in there and you realize it's just feeding back with all the knobs pinned. But that's where the whole crash testing
fun
came from. So
go put some scratches on it. That's great. But back up a little bit. You mentioned people saying that you were desecrating or what, I forget the term you used, your dad's guitar by playing it live. I follow you on Twitter, and I see you, get into it with people. There's a thing. What's the way to even phrase this? There's like a thing that happens with fandom where they love, and I've seen this even in Foo Fighter world in a different way, but this thing of like
they love something so much that they hate it.
Yes, that's exactly it. Exactly.
It's like Star Wars. Nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.
Exactly.
That's kind of how it is with Van Halen and anything.
Right. Well, it's like that with every band, I think. Because you're never going to make the second record again, or whatever the thing is. And everything you do is bringing shame to the part of the thing that they like, or whatever. Right. And I know that you deal with that a lot and push back against it.
I pick my battles, and it's only specifically when I see my own words being taken out of context to use against me. Like that's the biggest enemy of social media is context. People love to strip context out of everything to fit their own way to be like, meh.
Yeah.
But you forgot to read the first part that completely absolves everything you're throwing at me. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, every now and then when I'm in the mood and it's an easy target, it's really fun to just kind of bump them back and out of the way, because it's funny. And I wouldn't keep doing it if people didn't keep liking it. So many people are like why do you do this? And it's like, because like it like people seem to enjoy the bullshit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's like an elite club of people that can relate. It's like you and Lucas Nelson and Jacob Dylan and a handful of others or something that probably all have this similar experience, where you're almost like competing against your parents' legacy in this weird fucked up way that that's isn't necessarily fair.
They expect me to equal or surpass Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
Like put that into perspective. It's like how do you do that? Like why is that my bar? Why can't I just be good? Why does it have to be revolutionary or better? And I think that's where people need to be able to figure out how to differentiate people, because I'm not my dad. I'm a completely different person.
Yeah. And is that you playing all the, like, are you playing the guitar solos on your record?
I'm playing everything on the record.
You're playing everything on the record.
Every single thing you hear, every vocal you hear, it is played and written by me.
No shit.
Overcompensating for sure.
And then you put a band together afterwards?
Yeah, I got a live band. It's kind of like a Nine Inch Nails thing, where it's like Nails in the studio and then live. It's a whole live band.
Are you going to continue doing it that
way?
Or
very much like how Dave did the first album.
Yeah, exact same thing. Yeah,
and then yeah. So
are you gonna, like, you mentioned you've got some new songs that are going to be probably on the next record, but are you going to go in, now that you've been out on the road with these guys that are in your band, are you going to take those guys into the studio, or is it?
I'm still really enjoying the process and the challenge of doing it all on my own, and also just selfishly, I drums are my favorite instrument. And I can't really do that with this project, at least all the time.
Right.
So it's kind of my way of having my cake and eating it too, by being able to play drums in the studio.
Right. And then no drummer that ever plays with you can debate what the kick drum pattern was when you're in rehearsal.
Well, luckily Garrett, Mammoth's drummer, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy and an amazing drummer. So I got nothing to worry about.
Well, you've obviously, in listening to your record, like, you've got shred guitar skills. No question. But I also, I read a thing where you were talking about, you said that your dad was like not a great guitar teacher, that he would just go, just do it like this, or whatever, you know what I mean? So how did you pick that up? Like, was it just by being sort of in close proximity to your dad and just sort of observing what he did and then like figuring it out? Or were you literally going on YouTube and watching like some other dude explain how to play Eruption?
Well, it's funny, as I started playing guitar before YouTube was a thing. And so it was really the first time I learned guitar was for sixth grade. I wanted to learn how to play 316, the song Dad penned for me on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And he taught me how to do that. And then from there, as I went to middle school, I hung out with my friends, and it's like I would look up. My friend Ethan showed me what guitar tabs were, and I was learning System of a Down and Foo Fighters and stuff. Just learning what power chords were and figuring out. And I kind of just taught myself on my own through that. It's all, people have a hard time believing that I'm pretty much self-taught on everything. Dad just kind of, more than anything on drums, gave me a little push. Like he sat me down at a table and put magazines out, and he had me do like the hi-hat here and the snare here. And he's like, if you put your foot in the middle of that, that's Highway to Hell. And so the second he saw I could do that, he was like, yes. And he got me a drum kit for my birthday.
Cause he was a drummer first too, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, it's when he was a kid, and when he was out delivering papers, Al would sit on his drum kit, and he was like, well, fuck you, I'm taking your guitar. Cause Al had a little acoustic guitar, and he was like, I'll take that. Yeah. And the rest is history.
Well, okay. So tying into that, like you learning to play, I remember hearing, like, when you first started playing with Van Halen, that you were the one showing your dad how to play some of the older material, like that you guys were working on. Is it like, I remember hearing that, oh, come on, that can't fucking be true. But was that actually true?
Yeah, dad could be pretty forgetful. So it was a matter of just kind of being there as a constant, like, okay, we got to do this. Like, I remember I was always trying to bring out older stuff, like, it's one thing to make sure, I was writing the set lists throughout those tours. And it was one thing, you got to make sure everybody hears Panama, everybody hears Dance the Night Away, Beautiful Girls, Jump, the usual, Unchained. But then it was me who started fitting in, things like, hey, let's play Light Up the Sky. Let's play Drop Dead Legs. Let's play Dirty Movies, songs that you guys have never played. And so it was certainly a big thing. Like, I remember there's one day we were rehearsing, and Dad did his homework. He listened to Light Up the Sky the night before, and he came in, he's like, I can't play it. I don't know what I did. And then we sat there and figured it out, and he got it. And then we opened the tour with it in 2015. So it's super funny, just the way that you have to, I was always there to kind of just give that extra nudge. It's like, come on, you got it. You're Eddie Van Halen. Like, you fucking do it.
Right. Did you guys ever like throw up the old tapes and mute parts and go like try to figure? Wait, that's what I did.
We never got there. It was always just kind of plugging in your phone and being like, what's that fucking? Wait, go back. What is that again? There's one of my favorite videos I ever posted on socials was. It was before the 2015 tour, and we were working up Drop Dead Legs, and he was trying to figure out that first post-chorus little descending thing. And he couldn't figure out, and he was hitting all the wrong notes. And I thought it was so funny because he didn't realize I was filming him. And he looks up and he laughs. And it was just a really funny thing for people to be able to see that. It's like, not in this day and age with social media, it's like everything is rehearsed and perfect. You don't know that somebody did this thing 300 times to get that right take, but it looks like they're perfect and amazing. It's just important to see reality, that even Eddie can't remember something he fucking wrote.
That was my takeaway from watching some of that new Beatles series that came out. It's like, like anybody that makes records for a living, it's like so inspiring to like go like, oh, the Beatles fucking sucked until they got it right too, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I think it really put into perspective for people that it's like, no matter who you are, if you're yourself or if you're fucking Paul McCartney, it's like, you just have to do it. You can't it doesn't happen on its own. You got to put in the work, and that you do it, and then you have a thing at the end of it, and I think that really put it into perspective for a lot of people, that it's like, oh, everybody has to do it.
Did you, obviously your dad's guitar playing is probably your primary rock guitar influence, I'm assuming. But did you, when you were younger, sort of go back and woodshed on like all the other sort of titans of rock guitar, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, Eric Clapton, Randy Rhoads, Yngwie Malmsteen, like all those cats of that era?
Tony, I also met him a handful of times. He's a sweetheart. Dad and him were very close. But yeah, I was never really, and I don't think I really am, that much of a super shreddy guy. It's just every now and then, I'm more of a parts sort of guy. Like if you listen to any of my solos, it's kind of like, here's the first part, here's the it's all sort of written out. I'm never just winging it. I need it to be sort of tasteful and flow well. So I'm more of a songwriter type rather than like, okay, just hit record and I'll like for example, the way Dad recorded Beat It, he did that solo twice and that he winged it both times. And they were just like, okay, there you go. There's a solo. Like that's not my style. So, but I mean, there are definitely certain, crazy shredders. I think one that I really enjoy is Paul Gilbert, which is funny because he's super influenced by pop. He's got very much a pop centric style. But pop meaning my father, not the genre. But yeah, so, but for the most part, it's that's never really been my thing, is to like practice my scales and to try and play faster and faster. It's been like what riff or song makes me feel good.
That's interesting. Paul Gilbert, you can actually go take guitar lessons from Paul Gilbert. And I know that because I took a couple myself one point. Yeah. There was a point a few years, it was probably like 10 years ago or something now, where the drummer for Foo Fighters, Taylor, has like kind of a rock cover band that he's done forever called Chevy Metal. And I spent a period of time there being the guitar player in it. And so I had to learn like, a bunch of Van Halen songs and all this, and not to mention a bunch of other rock stuff too. Yeah. And like, I was never good enough to be that. I was never that kind of guitar player because I just wasn't good enough. And by the time, I got to an age where I was even playing in bands, like music had, it was more like the Guns N' Roses era or something. So it was less the shred thing, but I just never had those chops. So I was sitting there trying to figure out these songs that I just really couldn't pull off. And I was like, I need to take a couple lessons. So I don't remember how I connected with Paul Gilbert, but I went and just sat down with fucking Paul Gilbert a couple times. It was rad.
Yeah, I remember. Gosh, it had to be a really long time ago. I asked Dad, I was like, hey, do you think you could call Paul and maybe he could give me a lesson? And like, I think he did actually call him, and he was like, are you serious? Like, really? Yeah. You want me and not you? And he's like, yeah, I can't I'm not a good teacher.
Dude, any dad on earth would relate. I mean, I got 3 kids. I relate to that 1,000,000%. The last thing on earth your kids want to do is take a lesson on anything from their fucking dad.
But also, it's just a dad. It's very much that whole like, Einstein couldn't tie his shoes because he's such a fucking genius.
Right.
That's like Dad with he's like, well, do this, and then he would just proceed to be Eddie Van Halen, and it's like, I'm a beginner. I can't do that.
There's a few steps between those 2 points. Yeah, you need to spend a little time.
There's sort of a gap between beginner and Eddie Van Halen. So
yeah, for most of us, mere mortals. I know you, like you talked about, you started playing music, playing drums. Mm-hmm. And was that like were you just really young and that's just what you gravitated to, or was that a conscious decision to like separate yourself a little bit?
It just kind of fell into that because like I mentioned how Dad showed me the magazines on the table. Like it was just sort of maybe he was like stealthily, incepting my perception by like, hey, maybe we should start on drums. But I think it was more just an organic thing because I think he'd always see me tap my foot when I was a kid to music, and he's like, he's got rhythm, he's got it. I'm going to teach him one day, and yeah, so I'm really happy I started on drums. I think it's a great place to start when it comes to just like establishing some sort of rhythmic base for your understanding of music. So yeah, I played drums for about 3 or 4 years before I started playing anything else.
It's interesting you say that because that's like, Dave Grohl talks about that a lot, that a lot of his guitar playing is informed by his drumming or his sense of rhythmic hooks. And and that's like, even though he actually started playing guitar first, but that's like a big part of his really approach. Well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course the world was sort of introduced to you as a musician through your time touring with Van Halen, but prior to that, or maybe even at parallel with that, were you also just playing in high school bands with your friends and fucking around, playing keg parties and doing that whole thing?
Not too many parties. I think we actually did play 1 or 2. But yeah, I had a middle school band with a couple of my friends where, we would just cover all kinds of stuff and just have fun playing. I was always playing drums for the most part. But yeah, no, I was constantly playing all kinds of shit with my friends throughout high school. And then at a certain point in high school, I joined Van Halen. So that sort of ended. It was, I skipped 11th grade for that first tour. So when I should have been doing that, I was in Van Halen. Were
the guys in your band like, what the fuck, man? We got a gig on Saturday. You're blowing it.
Yeah, no, they were all like my best friends, and still I'm very close to them to this day. So it's they were understanding.
Well, through that time, were you like, was it always in the back of your mind to do your own thing, have your own band? Like, were you writing songs at that point and kind of like woodshedding and sort of like thinking of it in that terms? Like, I'm gonna play with obviously I'm gonna go do this Van Halen stuff, but at some point here, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, I kind of flirted with that, like, let's try something else. And what would it be like I was playing with Mark Tremonti for a bit in his solo project. I was
right.
playing, but then, and that was a really great time. Mark's a great guy. But that's when it was right after the A Different Kind of Truth tour, the last Van Halen album in 2012. It was around 2013 that I started actually taking an interest in writing myself, or at least coming up with ideas that sounded good enough that they could be their own thing. And so from there, it just sort of slowly evolved until we finally started recording for Mammoth as kind of like hey, let's see what happens. There was kind of no plan behind it. Like, I didn't even know if I was going to sing. I just knew I had a couple ideas, and it'd be fun to get together with my friend and producer, Elvis Basquette. And that sort of rolled into this. That started in January of 2015. And it took a long time to figure out what it was. I mean, we didn't finish recording everything until halfway through 2018. So it was sort of, but it's not like we were working the entire time. It was kind of, 2 to 4 week bits, like 7 or 8 times throughout that, but
like record some stuff, live with it, tweak it, change it, record some other stuff.
It was still very much figuring out if I could be the singer or if I could do it all, and also find, developing my own sound, something outside of the Van Halen bubble. So it could be something I call my own, sound wise and, style wise. But that wasn't an intentional thing. I think more sound than anything. But then when it came to writing, this is just what happened to come out.
And I know your record came out in the middle of last year, right?
Yeah, I think it was June.
So I'm assuming you still have a lot of you're going on tour next week or whatever, but I assume you have a lot of touring left to do. But have you started working on the next one, or do you have plans to?
Yeah, I'm really itching to get back in there. I've got a handful of ideas that kind of spilled over from the first session that just kind of didn't make the first album, not because they weren't good enough, but because there was just too many ideas. And I've written a bunch since then. So I think near the end of the year, we're trying to find some time, and hopefully sometime next year, maybe that next album will happen.
Are you going to be on the road till the end of the year, more or less? Is that your plan?
Yeah, it's kind of, my manager is kind of just like, I just kind of listen to him of just like, okay, are we touring? Yeah. Like where? I don't know, but it's happening here at some point. And so yeah, it's going to be a pretty busy year of touring, hopefully.
And you like it? Do you like being out on the road?
Yeah, I do. I love it. It's sort of that duality where you're home, you miss tour, but when you're on tour, you miss home. So you kind of balance those emotions, and you make a good time of it.
Did you do much touring with Van Halen, like before you were playing with them? Like, did you grow up kind of on the tour bus running around?
In 2004, I spent a lot of time with Dad on tour, but overall that was kind of a rough time. He was in a rough heads. If any Van Halen fan is aware of that 2004 tour with Hagar, he was in a bit of a rough mindset, kind of a rut, if you will. But by the time I joined the band and everything, he really got his stuff together, and it was really wonderful. Those 3 tours that we did. But yeah, I saw probably far too much for how young I was. I was forced to grow up very quickly.
Yeah, you seem pretty together, man. I gotta say, you don't seem like a rock and roll casualty at all. But you're still young. It could happen. I have to tell you, when that first video for your record came out, that was like the all the home cold from all the home movies. Like I said, I'm a dad, and that just like I couldn't watch the whole thing. It made me so. It was really
I can't
emotional.
I had to watch it enough to make sure it was okay,
right?
Right. And by the time it came out, I was like, okay, I think I'm done watching that.
Like, at what point? It's such a beautiful like love letter to your dad, or however you think of it. But like, at what point growing up did you become aware of like what your dad meant to the rest of us?
I guess it wasn't until like I think it was kindergarten where they put all those remasters out. It was whenever they did the whole like remaster when CDs were all big, and they did a remaster of the whole of all the albums, and I kind of picked it up. I picked up like Van Halen 1 up, and it was like, "Is that you, Dad?" And he was like, "Oh shit, yeah, this is what I do." And then he kind of showed me all the albums, and I kind of went through them, listened to all of them, and I loved it. And that's when it really started to get put into perspective. I mean, I would see things all the time growing up where, I mean, my mom would take me on tour when there's some videos out there of me like running on stage when I was like 3 years old, like right. Just to see my dad. And then I turn to the left and see just a sea of humans like yelling at me. And it's like, I'm like, I don't know what to do. What is this? And it's like,
right.
Oh, you. And so
that's so funny, dude. I had such a similar experience with my oldest son when he was a baby. I don't remember how old he was, but he was like basically still a baby, maybe a small toddler or whatever. And we were playing the Reading Festival one year, and I was up on the side of the stage between bands, mm-hmm. and I just kind of walked out with him just to show him the crowd. Cause I mean, I'm sure you've been to those.
Got festivals. The big cans on.
He's got his cans on, the whole thing, but he sees this just giant, it's just 100,000 people or whatever. And he's never seen anything like that. And his eyes are all wide, and he just goes like this. He just goes, he just waved at him. It's like the cutest. It was such a like honest reaction to it.
I love that. That's so great.
Well, hey man, it's been so great talking to you. And we've been trying to put this interview together for a minute, and I'm glad we finally worked it out. You're great, and I just wish you the best. And all you have to do, you and your generation, go out there and save rock and roll. No pressure. Have fun.
We're trying. That's the tour is called the Young Guns Tour. Me and Dirty Honey. I think we're trying to carry that young rock band weight on our shoulders and try to prove that all the people who say rock is dead are little baby men, or women. Women can be wrong.
That's right. Wrong. Baby people. They're just babies.
All these babies.
That's right.
That's the rock is dead.
Oh yeah, that was Wolfgang Van Halen. Make sure you go check out his relatively new debut record. The band is Mammoth WVH. He played and sang and wrote every goddamn thing on that record, and it's good. So check that out, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with my next episode, and that is going to be Haley Witters, because I just interviewed her yesterday, and she was fantastic. So we'll get to that soon. Adios, amigos!